This week in Pure Reinvention.
If you have a great internal team and you offer them incredible clarity, vision, and energy, you can go out and be out of the business, growing the business from outside.
Episode 75, Pat Gillespie, President, Gillespie Group.
Engage, disrupt, adapt, repeat. You're listening to Pure Reinvention, the podcast for curious people.
Welcome to this episode of Pure Reinvention, where we create space for the unexpected by inspiring a reinvention lifestyle. Misty, how are you?
I'm doing great. I was so inspired listening to this interview today.
Isn't that fantastic? I've got to tell you that one of the first things that Pat wanted was to know more about Pure Reinvention, and when I told him that we had a mobile app, he immediately downloaded the mobile app. We have to make sure we always remind people of that.
Oh, good point. So if you are listening right now, we hope it's through our app, but if not, there's still time to get it. We do put some freebies there you can only get if you download our app. So you'll have to download it and see.
Really convenient to get the information that way. So Pat, Misty, what did you really hear that you liked?
Oh, so much. And we'll talk about it more at the end, but highlights to listen to is just how he is so solution driven. And it doesn't mean that he comes in with this idea that he must execute. It's finding and discovering solutions. So listening to Pat's stories about how he goes through that process, it jumps up in a lot of this conversation.
I think one of the most important things that I wanted to talk to the listeners about was Pat has done this. So if you're wondering and don't know who Pat Gillespie of the Gillespie Group is, Pat has done some tremendous work. So this is not a model. This is not an academic. This is real solutions at work.
It is. And reinvention, reinventive solutions, really creative approaches to old ideas. And it's fun and inspiring to learn from.
He is a leader who has taken his vision. He's figured out how to navigate, how to move the landscape into a new and productive way, and he's been a tremendous inspiration to a lot of development.
Excellent. Let's give it a listen.
This week's episode is sponsored by HRM Services, providing solutions that work. HRMS provides customized human resource consulting services to fit the unique needs of their clients. Every client has a story, and they make it their business to learn yours. Contact HRM Services today at 517-974-8033 or visit their website at www.hrmservices.biz.
Pat, tell us a little bit about your company.
Well, the Gillespie Group has been around 20 years. This is our 20th year of business. We have about 75 employees. We're based right here in Lansing, Michigan, and we focus on urban developments. Everything we develop, we own and manage and keep in our own portfolio. And really like to do urban mixed use, retail, housing, office in different communities. And it's really rewarding to be able to see the difference we make in that community once the building's done.
Before we get started with that, I've got those 3 questions that we need to ask you. Of the 5 steps in the reinvention process, Pat, which step do you most closely associate yourself with?
Disruption.
And why?
I go to a class called Strategic Coach in Chicago, and I learn about creative disruption. So there's a lot of normal ways to do things, and we look at them each time we do something and say, why have we always done it? So we look to disrupt the way we get financing, the way we manage properties, the way we deal with people, and do it creatively so that it can set us apart from the way other people are doing it.
Because disruption can be good or bad. It's our choice.
Disruption
right?
is good.
Yeah.
We look at it as good because it just helps us get through it.
What is your superpower?
My superpower is I have the ability to look at something that isn't there, like look at an old automotive building that's getting ready to be, torn down, and look at it and say, I can turn that into a brewery. Or I look in the outfield of a baseball stadium and say, I can turn that into apartments. I can envision something that isn't currently there.
All of those superpowers, though, sometimes we have stuff that keeps us up at night. So what's keeping you up at night these days?
The number one thing that keeps me up at night is I have 3 teenage children, and I always wake up thinking, have I relayed enough information to them and taught them well enough to make good decisions and to be successful in whatever they want to do?
It's interesting in today's world, the children who will be going forward are going to live in a much different world than the era of the past. And I think giving them those critical thinking skills like what you're talking about is going to be real key. I applaud you as a parent for doing that.
Well, the challenge is giving them to them, but having them grasp them and learn them.
Yeah.
Being a helicopter parent is tough. It's probably not the best way to parent, so it's a fine line.
Let's get into this reinvention story of Pat Gillespie. Pat, when did you first realize that your mind was working differently than other leaders?
I think I was lucky at an early age. I think it was in my teens. I just realized that wow, why do I know what I want to do? Why do I have a passion for real estate or rental property? And why am I able to wake up in the morning and stay up late doing it and have endless amounts of energy doing it? So that kind of set me apart from some of the folks that were saying, I don't know what I want to do, and straggling along. I was able to really leap forward at an early age.
And what were some of the first projects that you got involved with?
Well, a lot of the stuff early was suburban sprawl, going out to green fields and doing little apartment complexes. And then I started obviously with single family homes. Renting them. I had 7 or 8 of those in urban areas, and then went into some suburban apartments. And that was a good way to get started, but transformed quite a bit since then.
Right. Well, don't you really believe that in this reinventive thought process that it's really critical that as an executive that you kind of build upon your successes?
Yeah, every part is a building block. People will say, what's your favorite project? And it's hard to say that because each one was instrumental in the learning process of, I would not be able to do what I'm doing right now if I didn't make a mistake or a success, 15 years ago on a project that I probably wouldn't even touch today.
Right. And I think what everybody kind of assumes is for an individual like you, Pat, you've just been able to automatically do what you're doing now. But I think the reality is you did need to learn those critical tools in the reinvention toolkit.
Oh, clearly, yes.
So let's talk about maybe one of the real key strategies that you use in reinvention and help our listeners understand when you look at that thing, right, that piece of property in this case, how do you begin to assess the positives that come out of the reinvention you're about to introduce and also some of the negatives that invariably also come with a project?
So each project is unique and different. We try to find a blighted area that really we can make the biggest difference, not just financially, but perceptually in the community. Once you drive by that building, you say, hey, this town's going places. This town is going in the right direction. So, that's always a challenge of how contaminated is the site, how bad off is it, and where can we take it, and what use is there. So the challenge is usually, it's always easier to find a new piece of dirt that's clean, that doesn't have contamination. So we're always looking for properties that a lot of people don't want to touch. So when I say disruption, we're disrupting the apple cart when we say we want this one, and it's going to be a real challenge because we have to buy 3 properties around it, environmentally clean it up, fix up an old building and add an addition to it. So basically, we like to look as a team and totally disrupt the way it needs to be financed, the way it needs to be, way we're going to market and lease it. It's not putting an ad in the paper or hiring a real estate broker to say, hey, put a sign up. It's us knocking on doors and going to people saying, can we help your recruitment effort with employees? And they say, well, yes. And we say, well, if you have a new urban building that's cool and hip and offers this, you may be able to attract better employees. Looking at it from different angles than just the standard way. So our entire team has been challenged to always look at a different way of doing things. And if we're going to do things the same way over and over, it gets boring and something's wrong.
So you're almost describing that one of your key strategies is to really focus on the deliverables or the benefits that this new development is going to bring, as opposed to the loss of whatever was there to begin with.
Absolutely. What every real estate development we do is a solution to someone's problem. So if it's someone that is living in the suburbs and says, I want to live urban, but there's no options, it solves that problem. If it's a suburban office user that says, I'm having trouble attracting a great workforce, people aren't staying, and we can offer them an urban building with good parking and it's next to some restaurants they can walk to, that's solving their problem of hiring a workforce, retaining a workforce, and creating a thriving business. So it's not just the end product, the building, it's solving a problem for someone at the end.
You're really looking at the major social trends that are going on in the world and then connecting your development to those new social trends that are emerging and in place.
The first 10 years of our business, all we did was go to the suburbs. And we were part of the suburban urban sprawl problem. And as we asked our residents when they lived there, where do you want to be? And they said, I'd like to be downtown, but there's nothing to go. So we listened, and then now we're almost 95% urban.
So I want to follow this train of thought because this is really an important train of thought. Businesses today think that they can change the trend. And what I'm hearing you say is you were listening to what the emerging trend was going to be, which was people looking for or or wanting living space downtown. And you then responded to what you saw was a early emerging trend. Is that fair?
That's very fair.
And for you as a business person, that emerging trend was able to then ignite this whole next phase for your development.
Yeah, when we went to do the first project downtown, the appraisers we talked to and this, some of the other developers in town said, "You're nuts. Why would you put apartments downtown? It's not safe. People don't want to live there. They won't pay a good rent." We were kind of a guinea pig, and we put our first 72 units up called Prudent Place, and they leased overnight. And we learned a lot. We built the units too big. We built them like suburban apartments. And, so we did not do everything perfectly, but we took the leap of faith and listened and created a product that they wanted. And since then, I think we've put up another, 250 to 300 apartments, and, within a mile of that, and every single one of them is leased. So we're listening every day.
So as an innovator in jumping on those early consumer trends that are so critical in a growing company, you have certain people who do not want to believe those trends or are fighting those trends. As a leader, how do you start to understand and deal with people who don't want those new trends taking place?
Well, it's a fine line. We have a team that's very close, and it needs to be everyone's idea. So no one likes a leader that comes in and says, "It's my idea, it's right." So getting team buy-in, part of my gift is that I can see things before it's done, but that's also part of my curse, because I can see them and some other folks can't. It causes frustration and friction. So it's more having to, have some patience, talking through why we want to do something, how we want to do something. And it's good to have the devil's advocates, which is great. But at a certain point as a leader, you do need to state what the mission is, why you see it there, and then you try to get everyone to buy in. And most of the time we do. And some folks are slower to buy in than others, but you need them. And talking about it and making sure the entire team is bought in has been a process that we need to go through in order to have a successful development.
Now, are you talking about your team,
My
team of individuals on your...
I'm talking about my team, yes.
Now, how about those individuals that are out in the community, elected officials or other decision makers who are not on your team yet need to be a part of and support the vision that you are seeing in these emerging trends?
No, that's a challenge because they're not on your team. And they are not on your payroll, and they're probably more apt to tell you what you're doing wrong quicker and maybe never agree with you. So it's more about communicating. And when I say communicating, it's about listening. It's not about going and preaching to them. It's about saying, what do you envision for our community? What do you see the future of our city looking like? When you look at Shiawassee Street, what do you want to see there? So I gather all that information. I say, okay, if we can deliver the jobs that you envision and the clean street you envision and the safety you envision by building apartments and a brewery and a office building, that helps meet your mission. So it's listening what their needs are or what their vision is for that area and trying to match up with what we're doing and communicating and educating what we want to do and see if it meets their, what their vision is. It doesn't always meet, but usually we end up meeting, at least 85% of the way, and everyone seems to be happy at the end.
Pat, do you interact with other leaders who have some of the same innovative vision that you do, who try to push too hard and try to control the process?
Everyone's got a different style, and some folks are more authoritative and say, if I'm investing the money, it's my money, I can make my decision. I just don't feel that's a healthy way to do things. Obviously, we're investing the money and we do need to make a profit doing it, but not at the expense of rolling over other folks or making people feel, like they weren't part of the process.
One of the things that I'm hearing you say, which is I'm really intrigued with, is your ability to not only listen to your own team and how to enhance your strategy, but then also how to connect to these influential people who are outside of your team but who need to be involved. And basically, you said you did that by listening. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, it's going and being ready to keep your mouth shut and asking some questions about what they want to see and what their dreams are for that area, what they envision. And sometimes if they say, I have no idea, well, could you see this happening? Could you see this happening? So, but a lot of people have ideas, and it's mostly about listening and hearing what they want. And then at the end, you try to put the pieces together and match it up.
So your key strategy is really to include those people as a part of what the solution or the opportunity is going to be.
I think that's one of our major keys to success is our ability to communicate in a way that lets people know they're being heard and that we do value their opinion.
So that brings me up to another question. So leaders tend to think that they need to spend most of their time inside the business, working with their team. Yet I'm hearing you say that you spend a lot of time outside of your business with other people to connect and listen and build momentum. As a leader, talk about how much time you spend inside of the business versus outside of the business.
So if it was up to me in a perfect world, I would only spend 5% of my time in my business. I have an incredible team of people. Some of them have been with me for 15 to 20 years, and they do the lion's share of the in the business. I offer leadership, I offer creativity, direction, but my unique ability is being outside of the business and creating those relationships and listening to community folks and community leaders and trying to build a consensus about what people want to see, whether it's office or hotel or business or apartment. If I'm sitting in the office running the business, we're not an effective company. The more time I spend out of the business, the better off our company is, only because I have an incredible support team at Gillespie Group that is gifted in that part of the business.
So I'm hearing you say, as a leader, you're encouraging other leaders to focus on getting a good, strong internal team, which then allows the leader to go external and build the bridges and build the opportunities that are external that the internal team can execute.
I think you've hit it right on the head. If you have a great internal team and you offer them incredible clarity, vision, and energy, you can go out and be out of the business, growing the business from outside, while they're taking care of the issues that need to happen in order to perform the things you're promising the community. So yes, that's exactly what I'm proposing. The more I can be out of the business, the further ahead Gillespie Group will be.
Pat, tell us how we can get a hold of and learn more about the Gillespie Group.
So we have a website, gillespie-group.com. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Snapchat, probably other forms of social media that I'm not privy to yet, but we're all over. We're posting, and that's how we do most of our marketing and advertising, is on social media and through our websites.
Pat, this has been a fantastic conversation. A lot of really good nuggets for entrepreneurial leaders to really understand from someone who is doing it on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
You know, Mike, how cool is it that Pat just doesn't talk about it, but he's all about it and doing it every day in his work?
Other leaders really enjoy learning and experiencing from other leaders who are experiencing it and doing it. So Pat absolutely is behaving it. He has great success because of what he has initiated, and other leaders can follow that pattern because it is proven.
So from my personal experience, and I don't have this about every podcast interview we do, but I've seen Gillespie's work just kind of blowing up in Lansing lately and popping up. And what I see are these vibrant, multicolored buildings that you can't drive by without looking at.
And if you remember, Misty, Pat said one of the 5 steps that he really related to was disruption. And so this is new to our landscape, these multicolored projects.
He's on top of it. He's ahead of it because he stayed out there in the world and kept his finger on the pulse of what's going on. And you see it. You have the visuals of the buildings, and then you hear his thought process. And it's just amazing to know that from start to finish, it's all new, next level thinking. It's all new age stuff, and really identifying what the upcoming needs are.
Pat, as a leader, recognizes how important it is to go out and investigate what is happening in other areas that is successful. Pat shared with us how important it is for he and his team to go out and to see what else is going on in the world. And because he's interested in doing that, he is able to bring powerful new ideas not only to his team for consideration, but then that team can bring it to the marketplace. And so for those groups that are trying to understand what to do next, think about going outside of your own world and think about connecting to something new to bring those ideas back.
And just real quick, one other thing that he said early on that struck me, and I'd be remiss not to mention it, is he specifically talked about the mistakes he's made, that he wouldn't be able to build up all of this stuff he's done without learning and having successes along the way too, but learning from mistakes and failures. And I'm so glad he mentioned that.
Willing to take a risk, willing to understand what works, willing to drop what doesn't work, but trying.
And we have, if you're still hanging out, we have a super secret special message for you guys about our upcoming podcast. we're looking at our Memorial weekend, and instead of bothering you on Memorial Monday with a podcast, we're going to send it out on Friday.
This is going to be special. We don't normally do this, but we think we have both the kind of content that fits really well into the Memorial Day weekend, and we'd love to have you have that early. So, Misty, on Friday, what can our listeners look forward to?
On Friday, check your inbox because you are going to be able to road trip with Pure Michigan's Dave Lorenz. And he is focused on Travel Michigan out of the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. And it's great content, but we thought it was so timely with the holiday weekend coming up and so many Michiganders on the road taking trips that they would enjoy this podcast.
We really appreciated Dave spending the time with us. He shared some very good content that I think will be fun for the listeners to listen to. Pure Michigan on the Friday before Memorial Day. What a great idea.
Download it on your mobile app and give it a listen and let us know what you think. And the best way to do that is if you rate us on iTunes or on Amazon if you have an Android.
Yes, let's remember, encourage everyone. Go to the Apple Store, go to iTunes, and make sure you rate us. We'd really appreciate it.
Remember, if you're ready to make a change, make it a change that lasts. Make it pure reinvention.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Pure Reinvention. Keep the conversation going and get alerts when new podcasts are up by following us on Twitter at Pure Reinvention or sign up for our mailing list at purereinvention.com.